as James Ham, our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, joins us here on 1320. So, Richaun Holmes, I literally just read your tweet out loud to everybody. Have you heard anything in the last, I don't know, 5 minutes since you tweeted that about his availability?
No, to be honest with you, we have no idea if he's going to play or not tonight. He was a really late scratch last night for personal reasons. I would be surprised if he plays because I'd also be, I don't know, not shocked if he wasn't a Sacramento King by the end of at noon tomorrow. Between now and then, I do know that the Kings view Sabonis as a 5. I had conversations last night. It's not something that Richaun Holmes did wrong. It's just they had an opportunity to add a 2-time All-Star. There is a slight chance that the Kings will try a 2 big man rotation with those two, or a 2 big starting lineup with those guys, just because, look, we go around the league and you see a team like Cleveland who's starting 3 near 7-footers. And I think, Sabonis has played with Miles Turner for a long time. And I'd even say while Turner is a much better shot blocker than Holmes, Holmes is a better perimeter defender. And so you might want to see how it goes. But I think that there's still a good chance that the Kings aren't done and we're going to see a couple more moves here before it's all said and done.
If they did go that way, would the thinking be we can see how this works right now for the final 25 games of the season, and it doesn't really affect any trade value that Richaun Holmes may have if we said, hey, this doesn't work, we need to move Richaun in the summer? It's not really losing trade value with him for having him for the rest of the season, right?
Yeah, that's how I think that they consider it. Talking to people around the organization, they just see it like, he's under contract for another 3 years. It's an extremely reasonable contract. Teams around the league like him. I think that they're going to have an opportunity here in the next 24 hours, though. Maybe, what is it, 20? It's not 24 anymore. 21 and 28
21 and
minutes. Yeah, 21 hours and 28 minutes. They're going to have an opportunity between now and then to make a move with him, I believe. Again, I think he's a guy who's just really had an odd season. And unfortunately for him, he hasn't built on what he did last year. And so I think there is hope that he can kind of rebound here and become a viable player for somebody else, or in worst case scenario, a viable player for the Kings again.
De'Aaron Fox returned to the lineup last night. Any takeaway? I know it's tough to talk about that game last night. There's obviously so many different circumstances. Tyrese is now gone. Buddy wasn't there. Tristan wasn't there. You had the late scratch of Richaun Holmes. It's difficult to wrap your hands around a game in which Jahmi'us Ramsey played 26 minutes. But De'Aaron did return last night, played a pretty full load. Any takeaways from him, his return?
Yeah, he looked lightning quick. He made a move that just was stunning. Where
carrying around 180 pounds less, 200 pounds.
Yeah, I think he lost about 220 over the last couple of days. Yeah. I mean, did you see his quote about that? He said, like we said, have you talked to Buddy? He said he texts with Buddy. He said he sent a text to Buddy, and he said, oh man, Buddy, Alvin traded you twice.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So, I mean, it was rough. There was a couple of one-liners that went viral last night. Even Harrison Barnes talking about Bogut. And, he was asked specifically, has he ever played with a big man that passes like that? He's like, come on, man, don't disrespect my dude, Andrew Bogut. And then Bogut retweeted that. And so that went viral last night. But when it comes to Fox, look, he looked like a player who hadn't played in a couple of weeks. Number one, he had fresh legs. He was all over the court. He was fast. He was pushing the tempo. He looked like a lot of stress had been relieved from him. But he also had loose handles. And that's something that you typically see from a point guard when they just get back, especially a speedy point guard like him. They tend to turn the ball over a little bit. and I think he had 5 turnovers. Overall, I thought there were moments where he looked absolutely spectacular. He looked like he was much more focused on his 3-point shooting, and he looked good there. So overall, I think there's a lot of positives to take from what we saw last night.
You brought up Harrison talking about Andrew Bogut, and it reminded me of this situation we talked about a little bit yesterday with a couple of people, and I wanted to get your thoughts. We heard on a couple of different occasions yesterday that this situation, not saying that Fox is Steph Curry or anything like that, but it reminded people with the emotional response of when Monte Ellis was traded from the Warriors and what that did for the Warriors. It allowed them to get a big man in Andrew Bogut, who, helped well defensively and helped move the ball offensively. It didn't, Steph Curry was probably going to be Steph Curry anyway, but it helped open up his role. Klay Thompson was brought in. It just opened up so many different things. And people made that comparison with moving on from Tyrese Halliburton to maybe that's what happens here in Sacramento. Do you see the comparison at all? You're losing a really good ball player in Tyrese Halliburton, but the fit that Sabonis brings to this team may open up stuff for not only the team, but somebody like De'Aaron Fox, things of that nature. Do you see the comparisons at all?
I do. And actually, I was there the night that Monte Ellis got traded because they were at Arco. The Warriors were playing the Kings that night, and Monte was actually on the court warming up when it happened. And then we got Mark Jackson right afterwards, and he got super emotional. I actually think he started shedding tears, to be honest with you. It was like a very raw, like real time moment. We were watching it play out as it like literally was happening. Like it hit, and everyone's looking at their phones and like, holy cow. And it wasn't. I mean, it was. I don't want to say it's pre like iPhone, but it was a long time ago. So it wasn't as immediate with everyone but it certainly had a crazy feel to it. Like in conversations yesterday around the team, again, I did get the vibe that, look, we're hoping that De'Aaron goes back to who De'Aaron was and that he can start building off of who he was, because it wasn't that it just him and Ty were competing for opportunities, and both of them are, giving and taking and trying to be good teammates. But at the end of the day, most teams that have a big time primary playmaking point guard, they don't have 2 of them. And Fox is a guy who likes the ball in his hands to attack the rim, and his assists almost come as a secondary impact of his ability to get to the rim, to collapse the lane, and frees up other people, where Ty is more of an orchestrator that draws the attention to himself while he's bringing like the defense with him wherever he goes. A little bit different in their approach and how they pick apart a defense, but at the same time, it is still competing with each other. We're talking about high usage, high assist rate guys. Ty clearly is one of the best assist rate guys in the league, and the Kings are going to miss that. But I think that Sabonis can be the key to unlocking De'Aaron Fox. I think he has never. I know he has never played with a big man that can pass anywhere near what Sabonis can do. Sabonis is a wizard. Like the only one who's better in the league right now as a passing big man is Jokic, and it's not even close. Like he is that good, and you're going to see it. You're going to see Harrison Barnes even was asked about it. He's like, well, you're going to see me doing all these crazy back cuts. He's like, his back cut game is crazy. So when you don't have that ability, and you also, I've said this so many times, when you don't have a big man who can rebound a ball and turn around and fire it out as an outlet pass, that's a huge problem for a team that wants to run and who has speedy guards. That means that De'Aaron Fox has to come back and get the ball all the time. And you don't have that anymore. This guy is going to dominate on the glass, and he's going to fire the ball out. It's not just that he averaged, last season I think he averaged 6.7 assists per game. He can easily do that in an up-tempo style without any problems. He'll be able to do that. He'll get a couple of assists just on outlet passes that they go to the other end. So, yeah, I think everyone should be really excited about the feel that you're going to get from this. And, look, let's be honest. This is a dude that is a real tough dude, and he doesn't mind mixing it up. He doesn't mind getting physical with people. You can go to him if you need a bucket. He's a guy who can do just about everything.
If Marvin Bagley isn't traded by 12 o'clock tomorrow, then what?
I
Does
mean,
he finish the season out here?
yeah, I mean, it's possible, but to be honest, I don't think we're going to be faced with that. I think that there are enough teams out there that are looking at ways to clear out space. Someone in the chatty house asked, can Lamb or Holiday be traded? And the answer is yes, they can be, as long as everyone passes their physicals before tomorrow at noon. They can be. He can be turned around and traded. He can't be aggregated with another player for salary purposes. So he can't be. He can't go with like a Robert Woodard, and now you can go up to like 14 million or 15 million. It's got to be him for like another player. But I think Bagley kind of fits into that same mold, except for Bagley can be aggregated with other players. So you can, like, if you have Bagley at $11.3 million and you take, let's just say, Alex Len at $4 million, now you're up to 15.5, and you can go plus or minus 25% off of that. So you can actually go get a very expensive player with just those two guys. So I think that there's like a lot of flexibility there. But when it comes to Bagley, I would be surprised. I would be surprised if he doesn't get traded between now and then. And if he doesn't, like, I don't think the Kings would just outright waive him. Like I did think that they probably would have with Tristan Thompson, just let him go. But I do think that there's a potential for him. I mean, there is always that potential that he could be waived. You just never know. I just don't think that that's necessary at this point. You might as well just play out the rest of the season. If he can play, he can play. And if not, it's no big deal. But look around the league. Look at teams that have traded for guys like Josh Hart, who don't want the next 2 years of Josh Hart. Would they give you a second-round pick to trade Marvin Bagley for Josh Hart just to get out from underneath the last 2 years? Maybe. And so I think those are the deals you got to look out for, where teams have, 11, 12, $13 million players, where Jeremy Lamb and Marvin Bagley both fit into scenarios like that.
A lot more to talk about with 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham, regarding Sacramento Kings, the upcoming trade deadline, and of course tonight's game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's coming up here as we continue on Sacramento's #1 sports station. It's Steele and KC here on ESPN 1320. Clear.
Be right back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Sabonis, his wife is from California thing is, that's something that like I heard as well last night. I know that's probably something. I think Mark said it on the telecast.
Yeah, Mark said it. He joined us earlier. California is very big too. I'd like to point that out. California is a very large state.
It
What
is.
exactly? What part of California is she from?
Yeah, I don't even know who his wife is. Yeah. And, like, there are people in here, like, they're worried about the defense. Like, there's some misconceptions about Sabonis. He's not just god-awful on defense. He's a guy who's played alongside, he's played out of position for the last couple of years. I'll say that. Like, he's a guy that, Miles Turner can't really defend the perimeter, and so he's a guy, so I think him and Sabonis and Miles Turner take turns getting trapped on the perimeter with guys. And so they don't look as good. But man on, he's a solid man on defender, especially in the paint. He's not a big shot blocker, and he's not a weak side shot blocker. But then again, I think he probably could be a better shot blocker if he wasn't playing with Miles Turner. Because he doesn't have to be the guy. He can hold his position and let Miles Turner come over the top for the shot block. But I don't think he's just horrible. That's like Richaun Holmes, to be honest with you, has not been good at all this season on the defensive end. On either end, he hasn't been good. When he's healthy, he just, he a little bit like some of these other guys would just seem like they're out of sorts and haven't been able to figure it out.
Yeah, Rashawn has had a frustrating season. a really frustrating season. I feel for him to a certain degree because he couldn't stay on the floor.
Yeah. I mean, I really do think there's a very good shot he's not a Sacramento King by tomorrow.
I hate that. I like Richaun a lot, but it just
Yeah.
makes total sense. It just makes total sense
Yeah.
to move on from him.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got a young guy in Damian Jones. If you can find a spot for Alex Len to go, that's another thing. You don't really need Alex Len anymore. And then,
Yeah.
You're going to have Neemias Queta at some point that's going to need to get some time. So, I wouldn't mind inking Damian Jones to a 2-year deal coming out of this season because you're going to get him for cheap and move him forward, with a younger group, back behind Sabonis. So.
Couple of quick notes as we're chatting here during the commercial break. Could y'all hit the thumbs up as you're watching as we see the audience continue to grow as it always does when James Hams joins us. And if you're not a subscriber yet, please do become one. Hit that subscribe button, man. We want to continue to grow that number. And then open up another tab and make sure you check out the King's Beat, available here on YouTube as well. Become a subscriber over there. We want to get James Ham and the King's Beat up to 1,000 subscribers as quickly as possible, and we know they're already knocking on the door. So if you're not a subscriber of the King's Beat yet, become one. Go do that right now. And if you're not a subscriber here on D-Lo and KC yet, do that right now. Become one. Also hit the thumbs up. Very important stuff. I mean, I genuinely mean that. It's super important. Y'all see we did, I think, because y'all hit the thumbs up the way you did, I think we did like 3,000 post-show views yesterday, like when the show ended. So
yeah, we blew up on the King's Beat on our show yesterday. We ended up doing I think it's got like well over 200 thumbs ups, and it gained us almost 200 subscribers in one day.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, so we're climbing fast.
Yeah, let's get Hammer there. Let's get him there. Man, holy crap, man. Your podcast did almost 2,000 views yesterday.
The audio did better than that. Yeah. Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, we're having
growing fast.
Having our little coming out party here with this. It's good. And the merch shop is almost done.
Oh, let's go. King's Beat merch.
Merch shop is almost done.
We got to show you our new Nation of Domination merchandise.
Ian, those are my guys. Man. Much love to them, man. I wouldn't be here without them.
Oh, there you go. I'm going to get James. If I sent you one of these, would you wear it?
Which one?
Share. Hang on. Share screen. There we go. This. Would you wear that if I send it to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, yeah. What?
We're coming back. I do want to mention here is James Ham, the creator of the King's Beat, kingsbeat.com joins us. We got some great new merchandise over at DLoandKC.com. We got the Be History, Make History collection, and we're getting ready to roll out our spring line here in the coming months. So not only are we a radio show, not only can you check us out on YouTube and podcasting and all that different stuff, we're now clothing designers. Shout out to Dave. I wish we could show Dave Garcia Design some more love, but unfortunately he's the sponsor of Drake Bars, and well,
not getting a return on that investment.
Drake Bars are a rare commodity these days, as James is with us here on ESPN 1320. So back to Sabonis here, as we look at the approach of this front office, and we talked about for months, James, you would come on here and say, swing for the fences. Really, in those two regards, like realistic targets there were Ben Simmons and Domantas Sabonis. Like that was there's little proof that Dame Lillard is actually available. Bradley Beal's season is over. Those are the only other two, big names that are even remotely talked about. We were talking about two guys, and the Kings were able to land one of them. As the approach for the front office is a play-in spot, because people keep saying this is a win now move, this is a win now move, this is a win now move. But is this like a play-in is like a consequence of like, okay, like it worked, but what we're really thinking about is game one next year and how much better we could be next season?
Yes, but I think we're going to know a lot more what this move meant after 12 o'clock tomorrow. Okay. I know we keep just pointing at that, but
it's hard not to.
If Harrison Barnes is still a member of the Sacramento Kings by Friday, then this is a all in for right now, all in for next season, and we're going to try to build something now. That's what that means. If you have to move Harrison Barnes and you find an equally or better player by throwing in draft picks or throwing in expiring contracts and taking back some other clunky contract that someone else doesn't want, then, I think we could see Harrison moved for something bigger, better. I do not think we will see Harrison moved to take a step backwards. There will not be a first-round pick and a moderate player for Harrison Barnes, at least not what I can tell. The Kings are, what are they, like 4 games behind in the loss column? That's not going to be easy to make up with 25 games to go, 26 games after, I think 25 games after tonight. So like clawing back in and chasing somebody down is not going to be easy, especially when you have to assume that there's a good chance the Kings are going to lose again tonight unless they get all kinds of reinforcements. And even if they do that, you're looking at a team that hasn't ever played together. So it would be an interesting win for sure, and I think there's potential for that. But we don't even know. We won't even know until probably 5 o'clock, maybe even a little bit later, if these guys are going to be able to play tonight. So, like, look, I think there's like a lot of ways this could go in the next 24 hours. But I really do believe that they think that they did something that will help them today and that will help them at least the next 2 seasons, with the hopes that this can be a permanent situation with Sabonis. And they've just paired Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox together for a long term. And I'll say this too. Harrison Barnes looks a whole lot better today than he did yesterday.
Yeah, right? Like that, I don't mean to interrupt you, James, but that's like kind of what the feeling that I got, right? Where 48 hours ago, I was thinking, you gotta move Harrison. You got to move Buddy. You probably got to move Holmes. Like, there's a lot of shuffling and moving you have to do. Sabonis alone makes you rethink moving Harrison Barnes at all. And then if there is a Holmes trade or whatever you get from Bagley, you could be getting some of the stuff that your team needs in those trades and still be able to keep Harrison Barnes. And it's just an observation by me. I don't think he will be moved, like you said, like you just laid out, unless they're saying forget this season and, going full draft. And I don't think they're going to do that. I think there's not a lot of reason, in my opinion, to move Harrison Barnes unless it's just this deal that you can't pass up.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, Harrison Barnes is an exceptional 3-point shooter at this point. I mean, he's a guy that can go get you a bucket. All of a sudden, he's going in and, getting 8, 9, 12 free throw attempts per game. He's being aggressive. He's doing he's typically done just about everything you need him to do. I think he got into a lull like everyone else did this season where, it started to feel like nothing matters. But he's a guy that can recover from that. He's a guy that looks like he looked like he was ready last night. And that's a good thing. You want to see guys that are fully committed. And he's always been a guy who's been such a good locker room presence, such a good community presence. But he's also entering the next year will be the final year of his deal at $18 million. I swear, like early in the season, the way he came out of the gate, you had to at least consider extending him, as soon as his season's over. And look, if you make one big move right here, and it does not include Harrison Barnes, and you can make one big move. People like who don't look at or not looking at the salary cap stuff. You still have the expiring contract of
Marvin Bagley.
You got the $10.5 million of Jeremy Lamb. You've got the $10 million of Richaun Holmes. Like, you start stacking these things up, and all of a sudden you looking around, and you're like, they still got plenty that they can go out and do. Like I can work some 3-way trades that would make your head spin. And the other thing, you still have all your first round picks. Like
Yep.
you just got Sabonis without giving up a first round pick. And I know the Kings are getting raked over the coals, like in the national media, and all these teams coming out and saying, "Oh, I would have done that." Like, come on now. Like you just brought it up.
In all my time watching the Sacramento Kings, here's how I would have done it.
Yeah, and how many All-Stars were available? How many 25-year-old All-Stars were available? And the answer is none outside of Sabonis at this point. Like I don't see Donovan Mitchell on the block. I don't see Bam Adebayo on the block.
And no one can actually see Ben Simmons, so
yeah,
kind of got to rule him out of this
that's
conversation.
more of a hologram, right? Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Damien, I'm sure, if I let this linger a little bit longer, Kenny would have gotten to it, but he wasn't here when you brought his name up during the commercial break. So we'll bring it here to the radio and just bring much joy and happiness to my partner right here.
I think we know where we're going.
Damian Jones played really, really well last night.
Look, man, I like the way the man's playing.
He's had about 5 games this year where you just went, oh boy, like it was like not good. Outside of that, he's been really, really solid. He's a good dude. He's a good culture guy behind the scenes. He knows his role. He doesn't mind taking a jumper in a pinch. He really does a lot of stuff. And I think that moving forward, he's a guy that he's not going to cost that much. So, like, if you were to re-sign Damian Jones, you're probably looking at, like, a 2-year, $5 million deal or a 2-year, $6 million deal. And now you got a dude that can cover a lot of bases for you. I think the one thing we'll keep pointing out is that, Sabonis is going to play primarily at the 5. So it does limit what Damian Jones would, minutes and stuff like that. But I also think that there's a way that you can play them for short stints, especially with the way that Sabonis has played with a big man for so long. And I remember Miles Turner had a breakout game where he scored a ton of points. And most of his points came off of the assists from Sabonis. Like Sabonis knows how to pass to another big man. We saw Damian Jones, Chimezie Metu trying to do a bunch of cute things in the game last night, and it was a train wreck. And like there were plenty of turnovers. That's not what you're going to get from here on out. The level of basketball IQ that's about to drop on the court is going up. And I'll even look at what I think both Metu and Jones both had 4 or 5 assists last night. It's almost like they started putting things into the like the game plan for when Sabonis is here, whether it's tonight or whether it's Saturday against Washington.
And the crazy thing about this, James, like you talk about Sabonis and Damian Jones possibly, sharing minutes on the court sometimes. I'm not calling him a stretch 4 or 5 because I don't think he is. But damn it, he keeps hitting jump shots. Damian Jones keeps hitting jump shots. I don't look at him as like, oh, yeah, he can shoot from out there. But every time he takes a shot, it's pure. He keeps hitting jump shots.
You're a lot more sure his shot's going in than Chimezie's. Like, in all honesty, every time he shoots it, you're like, oh, no, that looked good.
Yeah.
Like that every time. You're like, hey, that was clean. Your form was good. Everything looked solid all the way through. Like, I really do think that, like, he does have some other skills. And, I think it's funny, like, a lot of players have other skills that you just would never expect. Like watching, like, Costa Kufis mixtapes where, he's doing, like, 360 dunks or going between his legs and hammering it, or watching Costa shoot threes in warm-ups. Like, guys that know their roles, they don't do that stuff. You don't see it all the time. But these are hoopers. These are guys that have played their whole entire life, so they really are committed to the craft, and that means you got to be good at all aspects. Now, I think like Willie Cauley-Stein spent like probably like 5 hours a week on his ball handling skills, even though he was never going to handle the ball at all. That isn't always the smartest thing to do. You got to be really good at what you are good at. And the other things are just added bonuses that you get to pull out here and there. So that should be the focus. The focus should be like, I need to be a good rebounder. How do I get better at rebounding? And I don't think like Willie never figured that one out.
Hey, real quick, Dave, have you guys ever seen video of Dwight Howard shooting like corner threes?
Mm-hmm.
Just draining them. Just
Mm-hmm.
whew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's and I know James and Damon, you guys have been around and seen these guys when the cameras are off. There's probably so many stories of that, of guys that you would, like you talk about Costa Koufas, you would never think could do some of these things. And other big men, you just get them in a situation where they're working on their game and they just launching threes, just all net. It's crazy to see.
I know my first season, the Kings had Antoine Wright before he melted down. That didn't end well. And I don't think he ever played in the league again. He got a DUI that season, and then he got into it with Mario Ellie over some really, really strange off-the-court thing where he thought Mario Ellie had disrespected his mom. Anyway, Antoine Wright told me that, like, post-practices with the Dallas Mavericks, they would, you had like Jason Kidd, Dirk Nowitzki, Peja Stojakovic, and they would shoot all the way around the perimeter. So you're talking about it's 100 shots, right? And he's like, man, if you didn't hit 92, you weren't even in the running. And most days it took like 97 to win, but these dudes are losing cash. They're putting all kinds of cash on the line. And even like I was in the gym one time doing an interview, and I think we were waiting for Doug to come out to interview Peja, and Peja started shooting threes, and it was just like it was wet, like all day long. He didn't miss anything. It was very, very surprising to see that. Like, but maybe not. Like these guys, that's what they do. That's who they are. They probably like walk around the house shooting things at like their trash can and stuff.
Just don't miss. Do not miss. Why do you think Alvin took the, like, I'll just ask. I was going to try to ask it. Why did we see Jemias Ramsey for 26 minutes last night?
He didn't have anyone else. No, I mean,
did we have to do that?
26 minutes?
He played 26 minutes last night.
Yeah, even like I thought that
Davion played 29.
Yeah, the Kings were, but the last 6 minutes of the game were out of control.
That's fine.
So, I mean, that's why Harrison Barnes didn't play 39 minutes, because he had to come out at one point. I mean, he came out because it's like, hey, this thing's all but over. I think like Jemias, what sucks is that if you really look at what Jemias does, he's just off by a little bit. It's like his 3-point shot, every once in a while he throws up just a horrible one. But the ones that are missing, most of the time they rim out. He takes the ball aggressively to the rim, just barely misses, or he doesn't get a foul call. Like I think that he's a guy that if you gave him more of an opportunity, even if for some reason these guys have all been with the team for like 3 weeks. Like Nemias has been with the team like for it seems like forever at this point. And all of these guys,
he didn't get minutes last night.
Yeah,
he's like the one guy who didn't play.
I don't know what was going on there. To be honest, he should have got minutes last night. Alex Lynn should not have come back in the game late. But I think these guys, they do need more time in the G League, and they're not getting it right now. And I'm not totally sure why that's happening, except for the fact that I think the Kings thought they went on that long road trip. They thought that at any moment they could make a trade. And I don't know what the G League schedule looks like. It's possible that there just aren't a bunch of games right now. But
I think
these
there
guys,
was one last night, if I'm not
Yeah, they did.
mistaken.
They
I think
stopped.
Deuce was on a call last night.
oh, wow.
Yeah,
All right.
they were in Stockton last night. But
Yeah.
I feel you on that, James, because like you just take last night for example. Jemias had a 3 rim around and out, and he had a nice little floater that I like the move. I like the shot attempt, just kind of around the lip of the rim and out. And that's a good call by you, because you watch him and he doesn't seem that far off, but then you look up and he's like 1 of 7 from the field. Like the numbers and everything is not looking good when you see him play in its totality, but it doesn't feel like he's far off, but I guess he is.
And he's yoked. He works out like crazy. He's ready to take minutes. But look, especially, I mean, you just added Jeremy Lamb, and he's a guy that I believe Monty drafted. He was part of the team that drafted in Houston with the 12th overall pick years ago. You look at what's his name, boy, why am I drawing? Oh, Holiday.
Justin Holiday.
Yeah, Justin Holiday. Justin Holiday played for Alvin at Golden State. So there are some ties here that they know these guys. These are solid veteran additions that can actually play rotational roles. I don't think either one of those guys you want to play more than like 18 to 20 minutes a game. Maybe a little bit. Even especially Holiday, who shooting like almost 38% from three on almost 7 shots a game. That's something you're going to need with Buddy being gone. But my point is that you just added some like veteran wing help that this team didn't have before, and some grown ups, some like adults that can go out there and actually hold their own for a handful of minutes when you need them, and not like what we saw last night. And I felt bad because like it's not like Robert Woodard has really got a chance to get his feet wet, but he just didn't know where to go on offense. He was like standing in the way, like he did not know where to go at all. And at a certain point, I don't think anyone even followed him. They're like, all right, well, he doesn't seem to know where to go, but I'm just going to stand here and play defense because it's not like they're going to pass it to him. His head's turned the wrong way half the time. So, like there was just like a complete inexperience level that, to be honest, shouldn't have been there. Like he's been there enough. He's been in enough practices. He should have known where to go. But he looked lost. And I think that the whole game was completely lost in the first like 3 minutes of the fourth quarter while those guys were on the court. And it was like, okay, well, this is throwaway game at this point.
And they were competitive up until that point. I was looking at like, man, Minnesota might mess around and let this slip away. You listening to D-Lo and KC along with our 1320 Kings insider James Ham here on KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, an Odyssey station and driven by last year's Elk Grove Dodge. It's the Kings and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Round 2 tonight, and who knows what this will look like. We're still waiting to find out the availability of the Pacers contingent here, the former Pacers contingent of Domantas Sabonis. Now there are like Buddy and Tyrese, like there's stuff that has to happen in Indiana before those guys can play here tonight, right? Like there has to be physicals passed on their end. So if they're moving slow, there are a lot of things that could come into play tonight.
Yeah. So basically, all 6 players have to pass physicals. There is potential that a guy like Tristan Thompson, who might not be part of the plan in Indiana, that they can waive the physical because he's an expiring contract and they don't care. But Indiana is not going to take, especially Buddy Hield's contract, without having a full physical. You're talking about 80-something, right around $80-something million. No, 40 million over the next 2 years. Sorry. So every player has to pass a physical before any of the players can step on the court. The problem the Kings have is that Indiana doesn't play again until Friday. So there was no like rush because all of these guys showed up last night in Sacramento. So Sabonis and Holiday and like they were all here already. And De'Aaron Fox talked to him after the game. He's trying to figure out what they actually call Sabonis. Like, what is his nickname? What does everyone call him around the team? And I'm not sure that we still even know that. So Fox said that he rattled off like 12 different nicknames that he goes by. So that's some next level Hassan Whiteside stuff right there. Hassan Whiteside is a guy with like he did an entire video where he listed off all of his nicknames for like 4 minutes straight with Jason Wise one time, and in a car ride, a spectacular video of him just listing off all of his nicknames. It's a weird thing that the NBA does. It makes sense, but none of these players will get to step on the court. Now, if Indiana wants to trade Buddy Hield, which we're already hearing rumors that they might be up for listening on trades for Buddy Hield, that is, again, is very possible. Then Buddy will, they'll want to get that done as quickly as possible. They'll want to get his physical done. So I know I think Ty and Buddy at least, and probably Tristan, all flew out this morning to Indiana. But again, they're going to work at their own pace, and that might hurt the Kings tonight.
James, what do you think this team needs moving forward? I know we talk about they need a lot and all this other stuff, but just what can they do at this deadline, and what should they be looking to get for, in whatever trade, whoever's traded, what should they be looking to get back, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, this team needs a stretch 4 without any question. They need more length at the 3. It really does depend on what you're going to do with Harrison Barnes, right? I like Harrison Barnes as a stretch four for this team a lot when you add Sabonis into the mix, because it's really hard to use Harrison Barnes and 6 rebounds a game when your starting center is Richaun Holmes, who averages 8 or 9 rebounds per game. Did I say assists or rebounds? So Harrison Barnes at 6 rebounds, and then that's fine. 6 rebounds is fine at your power forward spot if you got Sabonis averaging 12 in the middle. But when you take away those 4 rebounds, you're going to get smacked around. That's not a good situation. So I do like, I do like a stretch 4 being added to the roster, whether you're going to move forward with Harrison or not. I think that you just you need better depth there. And again, that's not, I think Chimezie Metu's come a long way, but still, he's not a sure bet from 3 at all. And then I think you need a 3. And I think there are a couple of guys out there that fit that bill, and you need length at that position and the true 3 and D guy that this team has been lacking. And then I know people won't love to hear me say this. I kind of feel like they need a starting shooting guard. For right now, Davion is going to play that position, but this team doesn't have a backup point guard. So who's your backup point at this point? And it's not Sabonis. So if I'm the Kings, I'm looking at that position as well. Could I see the team going after all 3 of those guys in the next 24 hours? Yeah. And I could see there is a path to get all of those guys that I think would fill out this roster.
Mm-hmm.
But how much are you willing to mortgage? How much are you willing to put into a roster that you're not quite sure about yet? And I think that's the big thing, because you walk into this offseason and you got expiring contracts in Lamb and Bagley, and we keep listing these guys, and you got an easily movable contract in Richaun Holmes. Next thing you know, you might be able to go out and get somebody. You got Sabonis on your roster, you got Fox on your roster. You might be able to get an addition that makes a lot more sense to you.
What do you think changed over the last few weeks? And I know we were all, I don't want to say critical, but we were all very aware of the Shams term. The Sacramento Kings' current mindset is, and it was to build around De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton. Obviously, Tyrese isn't here. The rumors of Sabonis being traded, not necessarily to the Kings, but just traded in general, have been out there for months. What happened over the course of the last day, 2 days, 3 days, week, whatever it is, but since that initial Shams report came out, where the current mindset of the Kings was exposed?
I think it could be something as simple as this. And when you look at what Tyrese Halliburton did over the last 2 weeks, it did 2 things. Number one, it showed his incredible potential, which increased his trade value, right? We all saw him averaging, 10, 11, 12 assists per game, the 17 assist game, all of it. You're just watching him explode, and you're like, oh man, the Kings got something here, right? At the same time, that's what you're seeing from the outside. I think this all pivots on Halliburton. Everyone from the outside starts to go, ooh, the Halliburton kid, I think he's got game. So he became a much more valuable piece on the trade market. And while that was happening, the Kings were losing every game. And so you got to the point where it was like, we get it, he's good, but will it equate to us winning?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, from the 2 angles on the same exact player, watching the same exact thing, you start to go, okay, look, I don't think I can maximize De'Aaron Fox if I have Halliburton. I think Halliburton at this point has more value than De'Aaron Fox, mainly because of the contract. And I think if I can use Halliburton to go get a 25-year-old 2-time All-Star that fits with De'Aaron Fox, then I think you got to go do it. I think Sabonis fits better with Fox, and Miles Turner fits better with Halliburton. And if you keep looking at it, you start to wonder how in the world you could ever come to a conclusion where they all fit together, right? So you have to, at a certain point, you start looking at it that way. And, they don't run a 2-man game with Richaun Holmes and De'Aaron Fox, hardly at all. they run the 2-man game with Harrison Barnes and De'Aaron Fox. And then they switch the other side of the court and they run the 2-man game with Halliburton and Holmes. You just started to look like this is always going to look like two separate teams. And that's not what you want. You want one group of players that are playing off each other and doing, the artistry of the early 2000 Sacramento Kings, where everyone was moving around the right pieces. And this team, it did start to feel like there's no way that you can ever get this whole thing to work together.
James, I posed the question earlier, and before I ask it, I said it may not be fair, but optics, narrative, all this other stuff, it is what it is. You think there's a lot of pressure on De'Aaron Fox to play at a high level and to get this team or be a big part of why this team maybe can turn their fortunes around this year and next year?
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of pressure. They just traded what could have been the future of their team. And I mean, that's a big deal. I think this franchise has worn him out quite a bit, but this might be a way to revitalize him. And I kind of feel like that might be one of the reasons why they push forward right now and do more substantial moves, because if you get him in the right frame of mind and you get Sabonis and him playing together, then we don't just see this team like flatline and die off here this season. We see them start to go up a little bit. It's an interesting situation for sure. I think Fox does feel the pressure. At the end of the day, Fox is going to be a guy that, he has to step up. If he doesn't decide to take on this challenge right now, like, when would he? And, he's got to be every bit as good as he was.
James Ham, 1320 Kings Insider, with us here on D'Lo and Casey on ESPN 1320. Obviously, we're just going to sit here and continue to watch the clock together and wait for James Ham to get a phone call, find out what happens next. Did the Kings had interest in Ben Simmons, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This looks really bad to me for Daryl Morey. The fact, and I have no idea what the compensation would have been for Ben Simmons, but thinking about Tyrese Halliburton with Joel Embiid that's just insane to me. And Daryl Morey holding out for, maybe if you believe Brian Windhurst still has a lick of credibility in this business, like he's saying there's the Brooklyn deal. I think he called it the deal zone. They're in the deal zone today.
The deal zone.
I don't know if that's like the danger zone or I don't know what that is, but they're in the deal zone. So I don't know. Maybe Ben Simmons lands you James Harden. I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing, but whatever. I just when I saw Tyrese traded, one of the first things I thought of was, what the hell is Daryl Morey doing? That wasn't a question. That was.
I agree. Like that makes a lot of sense, but I don't know. Like, did they
may
ever
have asked Monty for 10 draft picks. I have no idea.
Yeah, and did they ever come back around to that deal? I mean, I think that's a question. Like, once the Kings were in Philadelphia and clearly had some sort of meeting or something with those guys and realized that just wasn't going to happen, then they just bailed. Like, they bailed on that. And at the end of the day, I think that Daryl Morey is always going to chase stars. Mm-hmm. And, maybe 3 years from now, Halliburton is that star level player that he's got to chase. But right now, he wasn't good enough, like, in his eyes. He's not the guy that's going to make the difference between the Sixers being, a 2 seed in the East or a 3 seed in the East and actually winning a championship. And so, like, we here in Sacramento get to see Halliburton a lot more. So maybe we do have that idea that Halliburton could be a piece that changes things for you. But, I think Tyrese Maxey is a developing player that, again, you're going to run into that same issue. Could Halliburton and Maxey, like, is that maximizing both players? And the answer is probably not. So I mean, it's always a delicate balance, right? You know, I think when you add like Mike Conley Jr. Mike Conley to the backcourt with Donovan Mitchell, like the first year was horrible. Like watching Conley in that first year, I mean, he just couldn't hit anything, and he just looked flat out bad, and he was making so much money, and it looked like such a bad situation. You give it enough time, and guys figure out how to work through it. I don't think we got to that point with Fox and Halliburton. But again, there's a big difference between a 24-year-old De'Aaron Fox and a 22-year-old Tyrese Halliburton than there is with, an elder statesman like Conley, who's coming in and will sacrifice certain elements of his game to make it work. And, I think that's something you got to look at if you're Philadelphia as well. If you're going to bring in a De'Aaron Fox to play with Maxey, or you're going to bring in Tyrese Halliburton to play with Maxey, it might not work.
Daryl Morey was the GM that reached out to Woj and said, if we knew Halliburton was available, it was
100%. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, come on now.
It's like it's up to the Kings to hold a neon sign up that says, Tyrese is available for you. Call now.
Yeah, and my buddy Matt Moore, I don't know where he got his info. I mean, he's the one who tweeted out that Morey asked for Halliburton and Fox and like multiple picks. Like that's where they were at. I mean, from what the deal sounds like. Yeah, so like we can't really believe anything that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Especially when you see what the Kings just did. Like they just got DeMontis Sabonis without giving up a first-round pick, without mortgaging their future. They may have mortgaged it with Halliburton, but I told you guys this before. Halliburton was worth more to the Kings, but on the open market, the Kings' first-round picks were worth way more than Halliburton or Fox. No question.
What's the strangest deadline you've been a part of? You referenced the Monte Ellis thing earlier, that happening in Sacramento, but what stands out to you as okay, this was a weird day?
Oh, the Cousins one for sure. Because like when the Kings traded for Rudy Gay, that was an early season trade. That was like in December they traded for Rudy Gay.
Yeah.
It might even been November when they traded for Rudy Gay. The Cousins one was weird because all of the information like 2 weeks earlier was one way. I mean, that he was staying long term and signing a massive extension. Out of all of them, that was. But I think this one already has the potential to surpass that. It may have already surpassed it because we've never seen the Kings mentioned in all of these deals. And then everyone's kind of laughing like, man, the Kings are mentioned for all these All-Stars. They're never going to land an All-Star. And then they just landed an All-Star. And you're like, oh, wait a sec. What just happened? So, I think that this one probably will, although just the scene of Chris Clark whispering in DeMarcus Cousins' ear.
For real?
And then he got his smirk. Yeah.
I love New Orleans.
He's like,
well, and he knew beforehand. I know he knew beforehand. He had some play in what was happening, but yeah, he had a strong idea. And to be honest with you, that probably cost him, when it's all said and done, I'm going to guess that cost him about $190 million.
Oh, man.
yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
That much.
Man.
Hey, so you said that was the strangest maybe trade deadline you've had, and this is up there. Have you been around one this intense where the stakes have been this high for the Kings? Because I mean, I haven't covered them for years, but it seems like this one is intense. Like we've been chomping at the bit for this one for a month and a half. Like trade now.
I think that there should have been other ones that felt this way. You know what I mean? Like I, in all honesty, the Kings they almost always make a trade at the deadline. It's just how big is it going to be? And the Cousins one is the only one that's super substantial. I mean, outside of that, I can't remember another. Maybe I'm just like omitting something from my head, but like Isaiah was during the summer, Rudy Gay was way earlier. Tyreek Evans was during the summer. when he was traded for Gravis Vasquez. Yeah, this is one that like the Kings always kind of nickel and dime their way through. You always see something, whether it's getting out from underneath Dedmon's deal, or they or George Hill. That was substantial, where they were able to trade for him on Shumpert. The Harrison Barnes trade, like, so they always make something. But this is like, there's never been a buildup like this. I've never seen it, and you've never seen a team like wilt going into it like this, where like it clearly impacted the entire season. This, like, the fact that guys were brought into this season that didn't want to be here, the fact that you had this whole like mystical deal that might happen the whole season, it took a huge toll on this team. And we've seen it play out every single game.
Yeah.
Now that the Kings landed Sabonis, did Monte do the right thing?
Like, I don't like doing trade grades, something like my old bosses always wanted to see. I want to see
Grade
trade
him,
grades.
damn it, grade him.
Yeah, like, I think we have to see,
Because
right?
you lost a lot of the season. Like we've talked, you've talked about this, you've written about it on the Kings beat, but he did land one of the two,
You got
biggest
a big fish. You got a big fish.
he landed a guy.
Yeah, but okay, so I get what you're saying, and I think the damage that was done this year, you basically just wasted a year and a half to do this deal, right? We can look at last season as well. They just throw that in, because the fact that they don't have Bogdanovic's contract plays into some of this as well. It does change the way the dynamic of how many expiring contracts you have. Like, there's a lot to it. But I honestly do believe they wasted a year and a half for this moment. But when it comes down to the deal itself, like, I don't like looking at deals and then making some grand exclamation and then saying, that it failed or succeeded now, because if this team, somehow makes a play-in, and with Sabonis somehow makes the playoffs, then it's hugely successful. If they completely flop the whole end of the season, get another high draft pick, and then come back next season and are really good, then it was good. If we get 2 years from now and Sabonis leaves and doesn't re-sign as a free agent, and Tyrese Halliburton is now averaging 20 and 12 and is like an all-star, then it didn't work out. So I think there's just so many things that you have to factor into a grade, that I think the instant reaction, the knee-jerk, what everybody wants, it's unfair to anyone involved, because you really don't know. I mean, again, we talked about the Vlade Divac trade years ago, where he cleared out all that cap space with Jason Thompson and Carl Landry and Nick Stauskas going out, and gave up a pick swap and, I think it was 2 pick swaps and a first-round pick. One pick swap cost you the opportunity to draft Jason Tatum over De'Aaron Fox, but the Kings would have still drafted Fox at number 3. And then the first-round pick was like Denzel Valentine. So, like, we make these gigantic assumptions that something is going to be just the worst thing ever, and then most of the time, it doesn't end up being that way.
De'Aaron would be hated if he was taken before Jason Tatum. Like, he was taken in a fine spot. Perfect spot for Sacramento, right there. If he's taken before Jason Tatum, the backlash against that De'Aaron is experiencing now would be significantly worse. We've got to let you go. You actually have to work. You've got to get on the road. There is a game to cover. That's thekingsbeat.com. Go subscribe to the Kings Beat channel.